Hello and welcome back to JBCTR, where today you join me in my GR Yaris. And that's because today we're going to be addressing one of the GR's biggest criticisms, and that is the driver's seating height. Now today we're going to be lowering this driver's seat from, well, this position to this. And I must admit, I have never felt comfier. DNA Racing Components have done a very good job on this. So let's get into the fitting guide. You take me down. And before we get started, let's have a look at what we get in the kit. Okay, so this is what you get in the DNA Racing Components seat lowering kit. Now, to be honest, it's all quite heavy. This isn't a weight loss exercise, but it all seems to be very well built indeed. Now, in short, I think, because I've not fitted it yet, that these are going to be like the adapters from the OEM mounts in the floor plan. These are going to go onto the bottom of the OEM seat, and then I would imagine that this is what you're going to use to pull up and down and adjust the slide. But yeah, without further ado, let's get it fitted and find out how it all goes together. So first step is to remove the driver's seat, which I know is a T50 Torx bit because I removed the seat to fit my amplifier when doing the stereo. Now on the rear bolts, I would recommend just loosening them and not removing them so that you can sort of rock the seat back a little bit and unplug the airbag sensors underneath. And also the heated seat element if you're doing this on a convenience pack. So now the seat is out of the car, we have full access to the underside, which is where we're going to need to do a little bit of work to adjust the rails. For this bit, I would recommend trying to put the seat on a workbench or something, just so you're not sort of scrabbling around on the floor. Here I'm using a weights bench that I built during lockdown because you could not buy them for love nor money. And if I'm totally honest, it's been sat idle for a few months. So yeah, perfect seat holding device. First things first, we need to put the seat in its highest position before looking to remove the bar at the front. This was really hard to show on camera, but essentially there was a small tab that needed to be depressed before the arm glided out. There are two plastic coverings towards the rear of the seat that will need to be unclipped. They are attached to the seat back, so you can choose to cut these off if you wish. I didn't, and I'll show you how they look at the end. Next, you'll need a 12mm socket to remove the bolts holding the rails. It is possible to gain access to each bolt, but you do need to get creative with your angles. You can then remove the stock rails, but take care to remember which side is which. These little plastic caps on the rails can be removed, as they won't be needed in the final installation. When attaching the stock rails to the DNA kit, be sure to include the 8mm shims. You'll need a 12mm shim if you're doing the passenger side. All of these fittings are supplied with the kit. And now you can attach the rails back to the seat using the nuts and bolts supplied by DNA. This was quite fiddly as you have to hold the nut, the bolt and the rail at the same time, but once you have one fixing in place, the rest are kind of alright. And then the final stage is to fit this support rail, which is pretty simple. And that is the work on the bottom of the seat now complete. And we can kind of get an idea of how the kit now works. So as you can see, we've removed the rails from over here and we've moved them inwards a little bit, which would then allow the seat to sit down inside the chassis a little bit lower. And that makes sense kind of when we do that in there. But there was one choice that we had to make when doing this, and that is these little plastic flappy bits under here. Now the instructions say that you can cut these off if you wish, but I've chosen to keep them on and try and keep it looking OEM. You've lost a couple of mounting points, but there's at least one on each of them to keep them in there. So yeah, I think it's quite nice you don't have to get rid of them. But yeah, let's do the other half in the car and then we can see what this looks like. So that is the seat rails now fitted to the car, and I must admit it was a little bit harder than I thought, because effectively the new rails cup the old holders which have carpet going up to them, and the carpet is not exactly flush with them, so you find yourself like wrestling with the carpet in order to get the new rails in the right position. But other than that, very easy. Now, one last thing before we put the seat in is I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant, which again is an optional stage. We're just going to put them on these little white strips here, so when the seat is running along them, it should be a little bit of a smoother motion. So yeah. Oh, there is one thing I forgot to do on the bottom of the seat, and that is to put the sort of adjustment bar thing back in. Now, DNA have obviously provided us with a shorter one because the stock one is now too wide for the new mounts, but their one goes nice and simply in like so. And now you can adjust your seat and you get some nice DNA branding at the front as well.
I wanna go down and watch it fall down.
The seat is then bolted in using the OEM bolts supplied by Toyota and secured using lock nuts that come with the DNA kit.
Speeding like there ain't no stop sign. My eyes set on the prize, yeah. I wanna go down. I wanna go down.
And that's it. The driver's side is now lowered, and it's really nice because it kind of feels quite OEM. You've got all the same adjustment, front, back, up, down. Mainly up, down is the thing I was a bit concerned about. The only thing I would say is with the sort of up, down functionality is that the OEM plastic trim down here can catch on the sort of original mountings when it's a bit too low. But if that's really going to bother you, I guess you could just whip it off. But other than that, oh my word, this is transformative and I'm actually quite excited. So let's go for a drive. Now I won't lie, I said it was transformative having sat in it for, I don't know, 30 seconds, but now I've done a little bit of a drive around, like, wow, this is probably one of the biggest transformations I've done, and also the most subtle, because unless you were really looking for it, you wouldn't know it was there. But I've never been in a more comfy driving position in this car since owning it. Like, it's a nicer view of the world. I know that sounds really weird, but we've got this sort of like letterbox thing here, which again people complain about, but lowering the front seat has also given me a better view through here as well. Like, I'm just in a really comfy driving position. Yeah, this is a modification that I think every GR Yaris owner should really do, because it's brilliant. I just feel so much more comfortable in this car. And with that, I think we'll leave it there. So if you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of me in cars and that kind of stuff, then feel free to subscribe. And otherwise, I'll catch you in the next video.